Yeah, so we're good to go. And today is the eighth session in the series that we're doing as part of the NEN RES exhibition and project conversations. And we have Grace Syiem, who is policy lead consultant from NEN Meghalaya. And Joy is here to take us through some of the works that NEN has been doing in Meghalaya. So Joy, it's yours.
Oh, thank you. And I see Pranami has joined. So great time to start. I think we're all here. First and foremost, thank you so much, to Northeast Lightbox. We've been working actually quite closely since I think December when I met you all in Guwahati. And then this time Rishikesh actually had come to the Shillong office. And so we got to spend, a little bit more time together and discuss exactly what we're doing. And we were archiving all NEN's publications and photos. And it was really very interesting, even, for me, because I come from a very grassroots, kind of space, and I'm not really well conversant, with technology so much. And it was really nice spending time with him and really seeing exactly what we're trying to do. And I think it is really, really important also because there is a wealth of knowledge, there's a wealth of data available on work around our ecosystem that we have been doing. And I think if all of this is not captured and we don't express ourselves in the right medium, then all of this will be lost. So I'm very happy to be here today to share with you all about the work that Northeast Network in Meghalaya has been doing. So can I share now? Do I have access to do that? Yes? Okay, can everybody see my screen? Yes?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'll just jump right in. Northeast Network Meghalaya actually started in 1995. And I think it'll be very interesting for everybody to know actually that Northeast Network actually started its operations and its headquarters actually started from the Shillong office. It was much later on actually that we shifted our office to Guwahati. But the work started in the year, if you speak to Dr. Roshmi Goswami, who is also a co-founder of Northeast Network along with Dr. Manisha Behel, we actually started our work in the year of 1994. And the work surrounded around mobilizing women for the Beijing platform that was going to take place in 1995. So NEN Meghalaya, as it did in the beginning, it reaches out to women, both urban and rural, to children, youth, and adult stakeholders in order to address issues surrounding gender, violence against women. And we do this through education, through training, research, advocacy, and also psychosocial support. So I'll be showing you, the various activities that we do and why we do them. So we began our work when we actually started talking about the issue of reproductive health and reproductive rights of women. We had a team that was led by Dr. Manisha Behel and Roshmi Goswami, who spent a lot of time in different villages around Meghalaya, and they were working with the women there. And really, we really started talking just about, the health issues that women were facing. So it's not that Northeast Network, really just decided that, oh, we're going to work on gender and we're going to work on violence and crimes against women. But we wanted to talk about health. And we decided that the best way to do this and to find out what the ground reality was to spend time weeks with the women, living with them and seeing the realities that women were facing in what we know is matrilineal Meghalaya. And we found that the women were facing a lot of reproductive health issues. And when we talked to the women more, spent time with them in their homes, we realized that a lot of the reproductive health issues that women were facing were because of the domestic violence that they were facing in their homes. So, for example, a lot of women would talk about suffering from backaches. They would talk about having stomach-related issues. And when we delve more into why they were having, these health-related issues, we realized that the women were so overburdened with multiple responsibilities and not really having a voice, or not able to really say no when that is what they wanted to express. So that is when we shifted our focus from issue of just health and also looking now into violence against women and really talking about domestic violence. And it was, there was a big challenge to Northeast Network at that time, especially here in Meghalaya, to talk about issues of domestic violence, because we come from a society that is matrilineal, and that means that the lineage of the mother is taken by all of the children. So the children bear the surname of the mother, and this has always been looked upon as something that is very empowering for women, also because women are the custodians of the ancestral property. So when we first initially started speaking about, the issues of domestic violence that the women were facing, we received a lot of animosity from, be it the government stakeholders, be it the community himself, who kept on saying that, well, domestic violence is a private family matter, and it should not be spoken out so freely by women. It should not be expressed by those who are also trying to help the women, and we should leave it between the man and the woman themselves. But Northeast Network, what we did is we focused a lot on our advocacy, advocacy on gender, advocacy on violence against women. And we realized that in order to get the people to change their mindset, in order to get the people to take ownership of the violence that women were facing, we need to begin through what we call a multi-sectoral approach. And this work started with us bringing in together the police, the social welfare, the health workers, and also the community members to come in together and to talk about the issues of violence that women were facing at the urban and the rural areas, and to see how all these different departments could actually work together in order to combat or to address at least the issues of violence and crimes against women in the state. So this is a picture back from 1994, where we had Maya John Inti, Kong Siti Monsawian, all meet together, and we brought in women from various walks of lives to come and dialogue and express exactly what our issues were, how we were going to highlight these issues, and most importantly, what were the challenges that were in our way in order to voice out the issues that women were facing. So these are some old pictures of the work that we had started doing. Now, if you look a lot at the data that reflects on Meghalaya, you'll see that the latest one being the SDG index report of the Niti Aayog, which shows that all 11 districts of Meghalaya are at the bottom of the gender equality index. We have the National Family Health Survey study, which shows that ownership of land of women is just 29.4% at the urban and 25.8% at the rural areas. And this was really shocking, actually, and something that was very eye-opening, because if you say that women own land and that the property goes to the woman, then this data really is showing you what is actually happening in the ground. In 2005, the NFHS study also showed that Meghalaya has the highest cases of domestic violence in the Northeast region. And when we look at women in politics, we see that Meghalaya only has about 3 to 4 women legislators. So the domain here is still very much male-centered, and we have a myth of a matrilineal society, but actually a deeper analysis of this matrilineal society will show you a lot of infusion of patriarchy and patriarchal norms in our community living, and also in our traditions and customs that we follow. So before I go for any further, I'd like to show you a little video that we had made. It's something that we use just to introduce a lot of NEN's work. It has been made by some of our fellows. It's really a rough cut. It's not anything very very professional, but it was work that a few of our community members who had learned a bit of how to make videos decided to make this little video to show exactly what was happening based on surveys and studies that we were doing. And we've named this video Kingdom of Queens.
Far, far away, in a distant land, where the cloud kisses the hilltop crest, the river's crystal clear as the morning dewdrops, the wind breezes slowly as the songs of a mother's lullaby, thrives a vibrant community in the corner of this world, a society where the woman rules a woman? A girl? Is this a matrilineal society? At midnight, in a quiet little village, resides a happy couple who were blessed with twins. The whole family rejoices as the cries of the twins echoed all over the village. Bundy and Boar, as the twins were leaving, had a fourth year added to their lives. This is the universal custom on birthdays. Their parents bought gifts for them. Boar could not help but jump for joy as out of the box came the coolest toy gun he'd ever laid his eyes on. And as all little boys are, Boar believed he could aim at everything he thought a weapon was to aim at. Her gift, she wanted a box of crayons, but instead got a set of cooking toys. In the Kingdom of Queens, are these harmless little gifts ways of delicately telling her that her place of rule is from the kitchen? It was time for the twins to start school. Every morning before heading off, Bundery would wash the dishes while Boar took the cattle grazing. It would be a hard day for the both of them. Boar stepped in to protect his sister, but the punches were coming in from all sides, the last one knocking him to the ground. It hurt, but everyone was laughing. The tears streaming down Brother's face silenced the bullies. Until boys don't cry, and they laughed even harder. And although she was tired and burned out, Bundery put her thoughts aside to attend to more pressing matters like cleaning the dishes, bringing in the firewood, making sure all the water jugs were full, cooking. Well, you get it by now. The ordeals of the day behind them as they enjoyed their favorite cartoon. The scene switched to a break. And I've not seen many men in the village with bodies as big and strong as the ones on TV. Maybe the boys in school were right. Maybe boys don't cry after all. 18 years old, and she falls in love. Now her husband is a pickup truck driver. As dawn breaks, being the early bird that she is, Bunry quickly and effortlessly begins the day's chores with food to make and clothes to wash first on her list. Her life took a devastatingly sharp turn when at 45 years old, her husband falls sick. He takes his final breath. His fight was over. Now a widowed mess of shattered pieces. Who was going to bring in the food? Who was going to take care of the bills? Who would send the kids to school? And how would they survive? How would she survive? Life. She was taught to make sure the dishes were clean, the water pots filled, the firewood brought in, the food to be cooked just right. But no one said she needed an education or a job. No one said life would be so much more than pots and pans. She labors from dawn to dusk like everyone does in the village. And payday came. She let out a cry of disbelief when she realized the men received more wages than she did. She contributes to the welfare of the village by participating in community work such as cleaning drives, night patrols, even taking on the issue of illegal sales of alcohol. Like most women in the village, Bunny is also a member of the local women's group and a very active member at that. The issue of unequal pay between the genders was a matter too close to her heart. Well, that echo finally found its voice when she brought her concern to the Doorbell Chanel meeting, but the response was not what she hoped. This creates an endless cycle of misconceptions passed from one generation to the next. Bohr's own identity remains clouded with confusion as to whether being a man in a matrilineal society makes him less of one, as custom dictates that he move out of the house at an appointed time and simultaneously he must provide and care for the home. They too are prisoners and victims of gender. Women are made to believe that they are in control and that they hold power over everything in a matrilineal society, yet they face the same universal discrimination against women. Let's break this chain of inequality for our future generations of fathers and mothers, daughters and sons, brothers and sisters. Let's create a self-reliant community that helps not just women, but men as well, to dream into reality a society that is socially responsible, safe, and equal.
Okay, so that was a short video that has been, made by some of our community members, and I thought maybe we can have a short discussion first around what you have seen so far, if there are any questions before we delve into the work actually that Northeast Network has been doing. Does that sound good?
You mean to say there are more? So there's another half of the presentation left.
Yes. So next we'll get
interesting. Yeah, interesting. Love the answer. For reasons, you understand why I'm passing on the mic to you.
No, I think we can continue. I would like to, continue with the presentation.
Okay.
Anyone, Ritu, Pranami, Chungrini, if you have any quick
if
comment.
anybody has questions or comments.
Or maybe expectation from, Joy.
Yes.
Yeah, I do have expectation now.
Okay, tell me.
So I always do this. I always hijack the mic. But you know what? You've kind of scratched the surface for us. For me, I haven't lived in Meghalaya. I only know through friends and, work, right? So number one, so you spoke about how, despite being a matrilineal society, how patriarchy structurally kind of is rooted within the society, within the region, right? I want to kind of push that a little bit more and ask you, can we delve a little deeper, through your, presentation or otherwise, what aspects, be it institutional, be it structural, be it social or cultural or religious, right? What other aspects kind of come together, in limiting the lives of not only women, but also LGBTQ lives and trans women particularly, right?
Right.
Because we're talking about trans women, where we cannot but talk about trans women as well. And there are a couple of references that we have also kind of made in the previous sessions, wherein we mentioned about a certain incident where a trans woman was publicly, killed, harassed, threatened, right? So women, trans women, LGBTQ lives, yes, we all agree that it's a patriarchal society despite its matrilineal. But can we also delve a little deeper into what aspects exactly function structurally and otherwise, in what ways to kind of come and sort of limit the lives of these people?
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
and yeah, that's basically the only expectation I have. If we can kind of dig in a little deeper. Thanks.
Okay. Sure. Anybody else? I thought I saw Rituparna going to start.
And number two question, of course, is when you said, NEN started off in Meghalaya as a mobilization for the Beijing 1995, but also this work and mobilization started around reproductive health of women, right? Wherein domestic violence was kind of identified as one of the key, factors, contributing to reproductive health issues, right? Was it strategic to start off with reproductive health, or was it something that organically happened, or was it strategic?
Okay, so that I'll go into immediately. It wasn't, I think it was something that was very organic. There were a lot of health related issues that, were happening around that time. And it was not just in Meghalaya, actually, we also did our work in Manipur, actually, when we started in 1994, 95. And a lot of the work was on health, because we noticed that a lot of women were not having access to health centers and community health centers. And that is why, we had centered our talks with women and our surveys on the issues of health. And it was only when we started speaking about health, actually, that we realized that health was so intricately related to, the violence and the different forms of violence that women were facing. And that is why, till date, in NEN, and when we are talking with different stakeholders, and when we're talking especially with the government, we say that violence against women is not a social welfare issue, right? It's not a welfarist issue, and it's definitely not a social welfare issue. It's a public health issue. It affects the community at large, and every statistic and data will show you that violence against women immediately, directly affects the health of the woman, but also the health of the family and the children. Because here we are also talking about mental health, and we're talking about psychological, social health as well, of the whole family, and of the community around, the women as well. So we really need to look at violence against women from the public health lens, and not so much from a social welfare lens. I understand that, the government has a system where issues around women comes from, is routed through the social welfare department for all its schemes and issues like that. Okay. I think someone commented, does NEN address it as of course, we, everything is addressed from a human rights lens, but also from a very feminist gendered lens is also something that is really important. Now, talking about, how patriarchy has kind of infused itself into the matrilineal society, and going more into that, I think we need to look at it at different structures and at different levels of, the institutions that we have around here. And we need to look at it from an individual point of view, the household, the community, and at the state level. Okay, how patriarchy has infused in us individually, just how the Kingdom of Queens video showed. We start at a very young age, right? We start these very gendered dialogues at a very young age, already from the time of a child's birth. all our conversations with them is very gendered in its way. When we look at the family level, you will see that the man is still considered the bread earner of the house, and he is still the head of the family, where even if he is not the one that is actually providing and bringing in the money, a lot of the decisions are taken at that level by the men. Now, the women own, I don't know if you would say that the women own the property, but the women are the custodians. The youngest daughter is the custodian, yes, of the property. But if she wants to do anything with the property, it really is the decisions of the maternal uncle. Now you will see in today's, in today's family, in the urban areas, there are a lot of nuclear families. Okay, you also have a lot of parents now who are giving property equally among their children. So we had a discussion with a lot of, with a lot of the new generation women who live nuclear now. And what has happened is that a lot of the decision now goes on to the brother. And again, it's on the male, where a lot of the women say, well, we have to talk to our brothers before we take any decisions that is, related to the family. So there again, you see a very gendered narrative there, and a very patriarchal narrative again. Then if you look at the community level, if you look at the Dorbar Shnongs, there are very few Dorbars that actually allow women to be represented in the Dorbar. And we have, worked with so many of them to get women represented. And now we have women who are representing in these local governance institutions. But if you look at the representation again, there's just 2 to 3 women who are being represented at that level. So really, how much voice do the women have? How much concerns can they bring out is something that we need to question when they are being drowned by the voices of maybe 100 to 300 men. And if you look at the market level, again, there you will see that a lot of it is very patriarchally, forced, where you have women, but women form a lot of the informal workforce. Okay, and women are not really there in the formal, work space. Now, if you look, of course, at the state level, you will see that, like the statistics show, we hardly have women in decision-making powers. We hardly have women in politics as well. And that is a lot to be seen with in terms of, because women don't have a voice, actually, or are not allowed to express as much. So not very recently, but a couple of years ago, there was a village administration bill, that came about. And according to this village administration bill, there were going to be certain changes, and they were talking that, women should also be, should be headmans of these Dorbar Shnongs. Women should take on more roles and responsibilities. When we carried out a survey with all of the women here in 32 localities here, a lot of the women said, no, we don't want to do that. We're not capacitated or empowered really to take on those roles. If men would share the roles of the household work, if the men would share, more of the responsibilities of care and support, then we can create a space for women to be there. So that's another aspect we need to really look up on, where we can't just push women. You're talking about 33% reservation for women. We did another study, I'm going to talk about it, about women, the status of women police in Meghalaya, where they say, no, the central government came about and said, well, Meghalaya, you need to recruit 33% women in your police force. So what we did is we did a study, and we saw, well, there's huge sexual harassment of women at workplace in the police force. There is no redressal mechanism. The salaries of the police officers are pathetic. They do not have separate toilets or changing rooms. So there were a number of infrastructural issues as well. So we had to actually dialogue with the Ministry of Home Affairs here to say, well, listen, you can't just push in a reservation that is saying 33% of women, but not have actual infrastructure, actual policies that will support women to work as police officers and to work in the police force as well. Everything needs to be looked about very holistically. We can't just push women, ask them to, okay, now become a headman of a particular locality. Very recently also, we had another issue that was talking about how, I think it was the clan reservation bill, where they were talking about, okay, now ancestral property will not go to the youngest daughter anymore, but ancestral property will now be divided equally among all. So the women all came out and submitted a memorandum to the KHADC and said, well, sure, that can be done. So that also means care, responsibilities at home should be divided then also equally, right? Just like how a woman has to stay back to care for her parents, to care for her uncles and their children, well, then also that responsibility should be equal between both the two sexes. And that became a huge issue and a huge debate because, the then CEM of the Khasi Hills Autonomous District Council said, well, that's not a possibility. We can't expect the boys, to do that. So right now, the bill has been stayed so far. So these are the issues where we're talking about, it's a mindset change, really, when we are talking about challenging patriarchal norms and challenging patriarchal mindsets and how they affect us at all levels, whether at the family level or at the state level itself. Any more, or should I get into the presentation now?
I thought you were into the presentation.
No, I'm going to get into the presentation now. That was just a little bit.
Okay, so I mean, sure, from my side, and I do have a passing comment, which I have kind of. I'm quite excited to see the rest of the presentation. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we'll jump right in. So in Meghalaya, Northeast Network has covered quite a few districts where we work in the Khasi Hills, the Gaba Hills, as well as Jantia Hills as well. And we have working around the thematic areas of gender-based discrimination and violence against women, governance and state accountability. Very recently, actually, have we started working on livelihood opportunities for women, especially, women home-based workers. Our strategy has always been action-oriented research and documentation, knowledge building and training, community activism, and policy advocacy. So every time we in any kind of intervention into a new area or intervention with a new stakeholder, be it government or non-government, a survey or a fact-finding mission or a needs assessment is always conducted first, so that whatever work that we do after that with a particular stakeholder or with a particular community is all on some factual study or some documentation that we have. So we work with government stakeholders like the police, the health and family welfare, social welfare, the legal services, and the Office of the Deputy Commissioner. And really, strategy when we are working with the government is not to work with just one single department of the government, but really bringing them in together. Because as I had said when I first started, when we are looking on violence against women, when we're looking about gender issues, it really is a multi-sectoral approach that has to be worked on, and we can't bear or push the responsibility on just a certain department. When we are working with the non-government stakeholders, we are talking about civil society organizations, educational institutions, and other NGOs who we partner and collaborate with in order to bring about some changes in the mindset. And that is where, working with the educational institutions has always been very, very important to Northeast Network, where we start talking about gender, talking about, issues of sexual violence, issues of personal safety to the children at a very young age. And we have seen that this approach has actually always helped us. At the community levels, we have been working with Varshnams, who are the grassroots levels of governance, and these have been the most difficult actually for us to have worked with. But thankfully now we have quite a few very gender sensitive Dorbarshnams who actually have collaborated with NEN and are actually taking forward the work of, having these gender discourse, of changing the narrative within the community. It's really been taken up now under the aegis and the ownership of the Dorbarshnam themselves. We work a lot with the Senkanthe, who are the women within the Dorbarshnams, the Sengsamla, who are the youth group within the Dorbarshnams, and most importantly, working with the. Till date, we have trained 234 doctors in the state on developing a health sector approach to violence against women and on ensuring that medico-legal guidelines are being implemented in the state for survivors of violence. And this is something that when we're saying developing a health sector approach, again, we're looking at violence against women from the lens of public health, where a lot of women feel much safer to approach the hospital or to go to the community health center or the public health center and talk to a doctor or nurse of the violence they're facing, rather than going to the police station or, to going to at the courts or any lawyer to talk about violence. And that is why NEN has worked right from the year 1997 till date in training doctors and in training nurses on how to identify cases of violence against women. And it was with this strategy actually that NEN in 2011 started the first support center for women that was in the hospital here at Civil Hospital, where we started with a support center where we had counselors who sat there. And whenever the doctors or the nurses identified a case of violence or of sexual violence, they would immediately refer it to the support center that was in the hospital itself. And when this system brought about, we were able to advocate and actually go to Delhi with other NGOs like Sehat, who also have a similar system of having these support centers for women in the hospitals itself. And it was because of the success of this model actually that now you have the central government who has issued the one-stop center schemes, where every district hospital has to have what they call a one-stop center, that is a support center for women, where doctors and healthcare providers can immediately refer cases of violence directly to the support center. So at the same time, we've also trained 546 police on gender and laws. And this is very important because we all know that the laws keep on changing. You need to update yourself a lot on the amendments that are being brought about. And therefore, for the police to have these kind of trainings is really important for them. And at the same time, we're also talking about gender sensitive policing, which is very, very important, because as long as the police are being looked at as just people with discipline, attached with words like authority, the community will never ever come to talk to them. So therefore, we are trying to bring about gender-sensitive policing within the Meghalaya government, so that there would be a better coordination between the community and the police in order to bring about, safety within the communities themselves. At the same time, we've also trained 725 nurses on gender, violence against women, and also developing a health sector approach response to violence. And so far, there have been 5,366 community members who we have worked with on issues of gender, on personal safety education, violence against women, and laws. Now, when we're talking about community members, we're also talking about really engaging men in talking about issues of gender and in talking about violence against women. So we work at 4 levels: at the individual level, the household level, the community, and the state level. And here are some pictures of the kind of work that we are doing with the women, where we really talk about empowering women on their rights and their entitlements. We do this at an individual level and also at a community level as well. And a lot of our work really now, a strategy that we have developed, is actually identifying community women leaders in all of the districts that we work on, and really making and training these women to become barefoot counselors. We have partnered with Martin Luther Christian University, who has given these women 6 months training and certification on basic counseling skills. So what the women do is they go, from door to door, and they talk about domestic violence. They identify women who are facing some form of violence, or just facing issues of getting their schemes, of having EPIC card or their ration card, and really helping these women to gain their rights, but also to gain the entitlements that the government is supposed to give them. This is a picture of one of our outreach workers, and these women have now been trained that they even advocate with the governance levels at the grassroots levels. That could be, the Dorbash Nongs or the Office of the Deputy Commissioner, in order to ensure that the government is doing what they are mandated to do in order to protect the women, but also to provide safety and to provide schemes for women so that they may further in their economic sphere, but also in their social and cultural rights as well. We work with educational institutions, young children, on gender and on life skills training, and these are usually, the most fun programs and activities that we have, because the children really are able to imbibe much more, than a 45-year-old actually on, the gender discourse. Women at the same time now have, been more empowered, where they come out in groups, and we've always worked on a collective approach of women to talk and to condemn issues of crimes against women and children at the community level. Now, when we're talking about governance and state accountability, Northeast Network, since it started in 1994, has always worked in pushing the government in order to ensure that the government is doing, is performing as per the mandate of the law, but also as per the international conventions that India has signed and ratified. And we really worked on the health sector approach, where we have worked with the WHO and the Ministry of Health to look into bringing about a very, very gender-sensitive approach to how we are dealing with survivors of violence when we are looking at it, from the health sector. We have always ensured that we will carry about policy advocacy when it comes to issues of laws and bills that are being introduced in the state, detrimental to women. I've given you a few examples where we talked about the village administration bill. We're talking about the clan bill that has been brought up by the district council that really talks about taking away more from women. And therefore, NEN, does work around surveys, fact finding, and we bring women together and go and approach, the higher authorities in order to ensure that any bill or any legislation that is detrimental to women really looks at the facts on ground at first. Working with the judiciary has always been a challenge. The judiciary is another level of where we have a lot of a patriarchal mindset. And we all know here in India in general, we have so many backlog of cases. The judiciary is overburdened. The laws keep on changing. So we keep on having consultations between the government, the judiciary, and the NGOs, so that everybody then now understands the roles that they are playing, and how we can actually work together in the criminal justice system to ensure that we have a more gender-sensitive criminal justice system that does not work against the survivors, but actually works for the survivors. And this has been, this approach, which has taken so much time, but at least now we see that in Meghalaya, the burden of proof has been taken away from the woman to the perpetrator. So now when we have crimes against women, the burden of proof now comes on the perpetrator, and it's not on the prosecution to prove beyond reasonable doubt. So like I said, a lot of our work is based on research studies, and this is the study that we had done when the central government had said that, okay, we need to have 33% of women in the police force. So we actually took up a study where we called the Chief Secretary of Meghalaya, we called the DGP of the police, and we said, hey, listen, these are the issues, the status of the women police in Meghalaya, and unless these issues are dealt with, you cannot just adopt a 33% reservation for women. And gladly enough, the police actually took up the recommendations that were brought about by the study, and now the police actually address and also redress issues of sexual harassment within the police force. NEN is a part of the internal committee there. We have looked into change of uniforms. We have looked into the roster system. So it is only through these studies actually that we're about, able to bring about policy changes. This was very recently where we were talking about shelter homes for women. So in Meghalaya, before 2017, we never had a shelter home that was exclusive for women. Women were kept in the shelter homes that were meant for children, and they were, there were shelter homes that only had a capacity of 70, but there were 500 women and children who were staying. And so we again did a study to bring out the gaps, the challenges that Meghalaya was facing. And it was only after this study that the government of Meghalaya now has opened up another 4 more shelter homes that are exclusively for women. So research studies, fact-finding missions have always been very key and instrumental to us bringing about changes in the government. At the same time, we keep on training the Meghalaya senior police officers on gender-sensitive policing, and there is an organization in the government of Karnataka. Within their police department, they have something called the GSPP, the Gender Sensitive Police, within the police force in Karnataka. And we've collaborated with them, and they've been so good to have always come here to Meghalaya to train our police officers. And actually now we are working with the government of Meghalaya in maybe creating something like this, a gender cell within the police force that really work just on crimes against women. We have worked closely again, like I said, on a multi-sectoral approach where we work with the Office of the Deputy Commissioner, addressing issues of sexual harassment of women at workplaces and addressing domestic violence. We carried out a study on sexual harassment of women at workplace in 5 urban centers of Meghalaya, and it was shocking to see that there were so many women who were actually facing sexual harassment at workplace. There was one woman who actually spoke to us about the rape that she has been facing in her office for the last 15 years, but she never ever spoke about it. She never complained about it out of fear of losing her job, out of fear of what her husband will say to her, and fear that her children then would not be able to go to school if she would not be able to bring in any economic support to the family. Now, all the government departments, as well as the private institutions in Meghalaya, have set up what we call internal committees to address and redress sexual harassment of women at workplaces. And we are getting cases in a month. At least 5 to 10 cases from different institutions do come out on sexual harassment that they're facing. Here's another important policy change where we were really working with the health department and took a very regional approach to this, where we wanted to talk about how women were having access to health benefits and to medical insurance in the state. And this was something that was a great success because it led to the Ayushman Bharat and to what we have now, the Meghalaya Health Insurance Scheme, where women, and not just women, but also families are being provided, a certain insurance coverage on medical illnesses. And our work now on this, with the government having brought this, is to really give awareness to the women on these issues, and the different schemes that they can apply for, and helping them to really get their paperwork so they can benefit from what the government can offer them. So that's a little bit has been doing recently. Starting from 1994 till date.
Are you there, Joy? Or is the network acting up?
Hung?
Yeah, it hung up for a bit. You're still hung up, at least your screen. Aku, thanks for joining. We had a very long session today. Joy took us through, NEN's genesis in Meghalaya and the work that has happened over the years. Many questions I definitely have, but again, I'll come to Labdyang and the others, particularly Labdyang, just for the fact that you come from there, you live there, right? So that way. But otherwise, I have like a list of questions. Yeah.
Yeah. No, go ahead. I'm curious as to what your questions. I think one question that I probably have for Joy is, from the time you started, and we talk so much about matrilineal. It is a very complex sort of structure, which affects this garb of what matrilineal. Everybody talks about, Meghalaya is a matrilineal culture, and women are so, they feel that women are empowered and women are have sort of a better status, which actually is not true, is not completely all true, as you have shown, and especially the statistics have shown. I'm just curious, have there, from all the work, and then I see over the years has done like tremendous work. Has there been, what would you consider very, what do you call it, changes, principal changes? Oh, I'm breaking. Am I breaking? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm not sure if
Okay,
Joy can
because
hear.
Joy,
Yes,
Joy
quite
said,
Labdyang also, okay, is Joy there? So Labdyang, if you type the question in the chat box, we will have it
yes.
throughout.
okay, cool.
Yeah. Also, Pranami, how are you feeling? You are unwell and you were, you are here throughout the session. So yeah, thanks for being there.
Feeling a little better, but yeah, the pain comes back actually.
Joy, I think it's also, I'm able to hear Labdyang properly. So Joy, I think there is some technical or network glitches on your end. I don't know on whose end actually, but yeah. While Labdyang and B kind of note down our questions, Joy, you could also try logging out and logging in once. Yeah, sometimes it works like that. Sometimes it works out like that.
Yeah, let me just try that. Okay.
Yes, great. Lavdyang, honestly, I keep thinking, I mean, this materiality of Meghalaya, I think it's overused, oversighted. And for what? I mean, I keep thinking about it. It's overused, oversighted, over-referenced. But why? But for what?
Yeah, I think, I think it needs, for me, I think it's so important to constantly examine and to see, can it evolve, with the times? Are we just stuck on one concept? Are we just talking about lineage? Because I don't know why, I feel very strongly that um, I do want to talk about that. I do come from one of the few existing matrilineal cultures in the world, actually. It is something to talk about, the fact that I do carry my mother's name, my grandmother's name, and all that. It's something important to me very much. But I also feel that, we need to keep the lens in how we look at it, sort of exotifying it and saying, oh, it's this culture that needs, we need to watch it from a particular lens. I think coming from Meghalaya, we really need to keep questioning what its relevance, question how is it evolving with our societies now? How is it interacting with who we are as a generation? And to really, and as Joy had also pointed out, really dismantle all at various levels, all these sort of patriarchal structures that constantly seep into it. Okay, I think Joy's back.
Yeah, what was your question to Joy?
Yes, I'm back.
I'm still writing it. Have you finished yours? Sorry, I'm still writing it. We started our conversation.
No, I think I can hear you now. I think the network's fine. So you can just ask instead of typing.
So while we wait for Labdyang, I also really, really like to, sort of encourage, Aku or Chingrimi or Pranami, just general thoughts, because for once I know that all of you have been with communities, in your capacities, in your engagement, and some of it really, really commendable. So just to know your thoughts, on the conversations we're having today and previously as well. So yeah, Chingrimi, Aku, and Pranami, always looking forward to also know your thoughts.
Yeah, hi. So this is like towards Joy. I mean, NEN in Shillong is doing such a great job with these workshops for women, and I mean, even with the police, it's like something that was a bit new to me. Like I've never considered that section of um, I mean, I've never considered government organizations as in these particular sectors as one of the, could say, stakeholders in shaping the society as such. But I also wanted to know that, hello, um, am I audible? Okay. I wanted to know if like if NEN is also doing any sort of workshops with men specifically, because um, I think the idea of, because I feel like the idea of, empowering women has been so reinforced that women are constantly being told to be strong, to be a certain way, to um, yeah, like there's so many workshops that are targeted towards empowering women. I also want to know if there are workshops that are happening which focus on men being more sharing equal share of responsibilities in domestic spaces, or if there are workshops where they are told to be more in tune with their feelings, or like I don't know how, because the idea of, I mean, masculinity and is so fixated on these ideologies of being strong, um, being the bread earner, or like, so I want to know if NEN is focusing on workshops which look at men as to be like more in tune with themselves, to be more
Yes.
vulnerable, or yeah.
Yeah.
And how does
Yeah,
it,
I
like
get
how
exactly what
does
you're
it happen?
saying.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think I also totally agree. I think too much of our time, in the 1990s was spent on, where we were just working with the women, right? And we were talking about issues of women with women. And that really did not, I mean, it was good in terms of getting women collectivized, making women understand their rights, making women more aware. But really in the 2000s and now, actually in the 21st century onwards, we really, really did have to concentrate on engaging men in this discourse. Because when we're talking about gender-based discrimination, we really have to also understand that that men too are being discriminated based on gender. It's not a talk about just one sex and that we're just talking about women, but we also need to speak about the discrimination that the gender narrative of our past, or the gender narrative that we grew up in, has been very discriminatory to young boys as well. And that is what has led to what we call now toxic masculinity. And the power dynamics that has been created because of the gender narrative of the past is what leads to violence and crimes against women right now. So that is why NEN, in all the 3 states, we work very closely with young boys, with the youth now, in order to change and challenge the gender discourse, right? And to also talk about issues of inclusiveness, which is very, very important, and the issue of consent from a very young age, talking both to young boys, to young girls as well on these issues. So yes, we do, to answer directly your question, we really engage with boys as well on issues of gender.
Labdyang, we are still waiting for your question. If Chingmi doesn't have another one right now.
I don't know if mine's I don't know how to really frame it, but let me try. So, I mean, it's really commendable the work that NEN has been doing in Meghalaya. All the fact that you've touched upon all these different sectors and really sort of have like it seems like a very overall sort of way of engagement, really. Has there any, from 1995 to where we are right now, has there really been a shift in people's perspectives and or is there something that for you, I think, working with men is still frustrating? Is there something that you still say we can't get, we can't, there's sort of there's still sort of a challenge, or there's still sort of a block in terms of breaking something? I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm talking, this is also, and something that Kumam also brought up, this whole thing of matrilineal. We keep talking about matrilineal culture, and we talk about, we still face so much of violence against women, domestic violence. And then at the same time, you have men who sort of are coming up and saying, oh, but we don't have a voice. Oh, but, they even form an organization that say, Singkongram Mai, which means they want to form a new hearth. Like, we talk so much about the hearth, the fireplace. So we want to form a new hearth. And the men say, we don't have rights. We don't feel we are given sort of a space in a way. We do have such an organization. It exists. So I feel that, are we in a very sort of confusing space? Do you think the conversations tend to get more confusing? I don't know. And what for you is a very frustrating factor, I think, that I think for you feel still needs to be addressed? That's my question. I don't know if it's
Also, Joy,
Yeah.
Joy, just to
Yes.
kind of add more pressure to you. Uh, so to kind of also continue from Labdyang, I mean, I have been thinking about this since like halfway through the presentation. Also, like the impact of NEN's work. I mean, like Labdyang said, is it frustrating? Not being able to see not being able to see enough impact or change. Despite the years of work, like years of work, and I can
27 years.
only yeah. I can only imagine how frustrating it would have been, or let's say how challenging it would have been, if not frustrating is the right word. Again, but my question is slightly different.
I would not.
We lost you again.
Okay.
Do you want to try without the video? Let's see if it works. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, does that help?
It helps, definitely. Yeah, please.
Yeah, we can hear your voice.
Okay, so yeah, I wouldn't say that it's I've been with Northeast Network now for almost 8 years, actually working here in Meghalaya, and from the time that I joined, or even if I go back to 1994 till date, I think we have seen a great change. Okay, and a lot of the change is happening at the individual level, if not at the society level. And this is why we carry on, with the work that we do. For example, the 8 women community leaders who we have now. For me, they are centers in the hospitals that provide psychosocial support to women. That really reminds me and also pushes me, and as well as the team, to continue doing the work that we do. Working today, and even working with the men and the boys, I think it's always it's challenging, yes, but every program, every awareness program, at least leads them to question or to introspect on their mindset, on the dialogue that we are having and the narrative that is going on. So in that way, I feel that it is it's great what we have been able to achieve so far. Although there is a lot of work that we must continue to do. Now, when I feel that we are in a space right now that is very complex, Laptian, like how you had said, we have on one side, men who have now come together as a collective. Well, they actually even have some women who have joined them. And, they're talking about changing the structure into a patrilineal structure to do away with patrilineal. So I can only say, and I've said this very openly and publicly, that I think dialogue is very important. Also, you challenge, patrilineal, but I don't think you can change customary laws and tradition. I don't think that can be done, so easily, and it would have to take a lot of kind of public force in order to do that, and community force. And I don't think that that kind of trust will be given to actually change our customary traditions and practices. But I think dialogue is definitely something that is very important with all the other movements that have come about. See, because with each generation, we're going through a lot of transitional phases. And I think we also need to re-strategize and strategize ourselves accordingly. But at the helm of everything, we should be looking at equity among sexes in order to bring about any policy changes. And I think that is where it becomes kind of very challenging for the youth of today, and also for the political leaders of today, in order to work around bringing about that equity. I feel is what is kind of where we are stuck at in this generation.
Does anyone have a quick question? I wanted to kind of catch Aku's attention here as well, and there's a reason why. And Aku, I'm sorry if I caught you unprepared. Also, nothing that kind of sort of heavily draws onto this presentation. Also, so I'm going to actually take your permission and just go ahead. So Aku, has been a visible figure, at least in the circle that I know for some years. Aku's Infal Talkies and other projects and communities that he has worked have been, again, very, very visible, and also, let's say, resonating in so many ways. But Aku, to be very honest, one of the most resonating experiences for me remains the time you wore a fanek and you showed up, express your solidarity with women. That has remained a very strong, let's say, pivotal, experience for me, as far as my understanding of you, concerns. So, in relation to today's, session, wherein, Joy keeps talking about engaging men, Labdyang, or Chingrimi for that matter, also kind of refer to it. So, what is your take on, cis men's solidarity with cis women? What is your personal political take, on solidarity with the women's struggle? Very generic question in that sense, but I felt like, this was just coming.
Yeah, yeah. So it's actually, when you join a session like this where we talk about all the discrimination towards, our I mean, I actually feel very, very, ashamed of myself, not being able to do anything about it. And I am someone, who used to say proudly that, I'm a feminist. I mean, during my daily days and all, but, but the classic example which happened in my personal life is I got married recently, and uh, my wife, she is actually a very hardcore human rights activist. She used to work with the widows whose husbands were killed in the fake encounter, extrajudicial execution, and she is very, very vocal, about everything. I mean, she would criticize my music, she would criticize my poetry, she would criticize everything. She was such a, strong. I mean, she's still strong. But we got married, and she sacrificed so much, and then she came to live with me. I mean, she's here with me still, and she tries to please my parents also, and at the same time she also runs a bakery. It's like a 24-hour bakery kind of a thing. She employs only women, no men are allowed in her bakery. And it's a very eye opening and very learning thing for me. But one night we were just talking, and then she said, no matter who you are, whether you are a judge or whether you are a doctor or engineer, a woman gonna be a slave in her husband's house, because she's been like doing that. She's trying to cook here whenever she comes back from bakery, and that's such a slap on my face. That, and I feel very, very ashamed, and I had nothing to tell her, and all I said is like, I'm sorry, and I'm trying to, I'm trying to pitch in wherever I can. And and the more she said to me, it's like to me it was like a poetry by Sylvia Plath. It was like just a hardest slap I ever have had regarding. Uh, I don't know, Devishan. It's actually, I feel very ashamed, as a man in a very patriarchal society, and I feel ashamed that I used to think that I'm a feminist and all back then, and now
I
I
can't.
look at myself and
Yeah.
yeah,
I can't
now I
speak for the
look,
rest. Sorry. Yeah.
yeah,
I can't speak for
I
the rest of the
can't,
people, but I still respect you in
yeah,
all the years I've seen.
I mean, so I've been, trying to help her and everything, and I mean, I'm also doing a lot actually. I'm not saying, I'm sitting home, and I have been, since we got married, I have been her driver, driving her to her bakery, this and that. But that comes nothing close to what she does. The biggest sacrifice in leaving her, her parental home and coming down to stay with a lousy guy like me with no salary. That's of course the biggest sacrifice. And and after that, trying to make the ends meet. And this is something that I have been wondering. This same thing also I wanted to share in the last session that we had. Uh, you know, but uh, still, I mean, that's where I am, Davidson. I don't know how, where to chip in to make a change in the entire this very structural, patriarchal system that we live in. So I'm open to any kind of suggestion. And actually, I'm very grateful to be part of this, this residency and this entire event program. And thanks to Joy, for sharing all this. But I have missed out so many things. I'm sorry, I got stuck somewhere, and then I couldn't just come and join the session. And forgive me for that.
Aku, I think you were too apologetic, and I think that was maybe not so required. But Joy and everyone, I think I really kind of got something out of Aku's, sharing. And Joy, are we ready for like maybe a couple of more questions? I think I have one question, and just go around maybe like for one question each. Joy,
Yeah,
can you?
sure.
Okay, so quickly before we kind of drift into other aspects, when Aku mentions constantly about how shameful he is, or how ashamed of himself, being a cis man, and and his wife kind of being put in a certain position. So Joy, my question or my reflection, to Joy, and to Joy particularly, because Joy, you have been part of an organization, a movement, right? Like the rest of us in our own capacities. So in fact, to Joy and everyone else, and to Aku also, does, especially to the women out here, does cis men, does cis men solidarity for women's struggle somewhere also start with this acceptance and acceptance and acknowledgement of one's complicitness in it, like I am, as a cis straight man, part of the structure. So this recognition, realization, acknowledgement. So is this part of the process of of cis men kind of building that solidarity with women's
Ay,
struggle?
hakalam ini nang sangdihay.
Aku, yeah, we heard you speak with Monica. So Joy again, Joy and everyone. So where does this realization, reflection, acknowledgement of one's own sense of complicity and shame, as a cis straight man, where does it stand in the larger, struggle for women's empowerment, equality, and inclusion? What do you think about it?
I think it's a start, and that's what we're trying to do. But I think we, again, I wouldn't use the word, the shame of it, because I don't think any individual can blame themselves, especially men, also, for how for how society expects them to behave, right? Because the problem is not with the individual. The problem is with societal norms and expectations. And I think the first step is realizing and challenging those societal norms, right? That have made you, that inform your decision making, but also inform your actions. So I would say actually the first step is that realization, actually. Not the realization of I'm the one who's doing this, but actually questioning why am I doing this? Is it an informed decision that I am making, or am I doing it because I've never questioned the intention behind it? Okay, so I think when men are able to reach that point, that's when change starts happening. And the next step, I say, is dialogue and communication. And that is where, we will reach some kind of, because even between the relationship between men and women, now I'm just speaking, just on that, a lot of time it's the communication and the way of we communicate that actually, triggers a lot of what we say now then violence and the power dynamics that happens in there. So that realization has to come in with communication and dialogue. That is where it all starts from.
Any last thoughts, questions, everyone? Anything? Barring me, everyone. Hey, you're muted.
Sorry. No, there are lots of thoughts. I don't think there are any last thoughts. I don't think there'll ever be last thoughts. But yes, I think thank you, Aku, for sharing and for for talking to us about it, because for me it is, it's so important. And I agree, like, often we're not conscious of why we are sort of doing certain things, or why we are behaving a certain way. I know, like, I got married recently as well, and it's something that Keshav and I, my husband and I'm constantly trying to talk. We're constantly talking about gender roles. Is it expected of me to sort of do certain things, or is it expected of him to do certain things? But can we sort of switch these expectations, or can we say, let's not have these expectations, or let's and it is constantly a process of communicating and dialoguing, but we are definitely, you know, so steeped in sort of what the society, all these different norms that society has sort of put on us, and you know, these things that are constantly, that keep, even if you try within, as a couple, you try and question it, you know, you go off somewhere to another household, to a different setting, and you're like, again, you know, you're faced with what the society, sort of the expectations that society has of you. So it takes I think, yeah, through continuous dialogues and all that. Sorry, I think I'm just starting to drift as well, but no last thoughts. There's a lot. Thank you, Joy, for this session. There's a lot really to think about there, I think, and to consider.
Yeah, thanks, Laptiang. And yeah, my last thoughts. Am I allowed to have last thoughts or last words? Yes? Okay, that's nice. Usually I'm not allowed. But I just want to say, like Laptiang said, I think if you start with the individual, if all of us could start questioning, and just how Laptiang is doing now, and it is a constant struggle, but that is where change begins. Because when the individual questions, when the individual changes, that's when, you know, the community will change and the state will change as well. Because it's individuals sitting in the seats of authority, it's individuals who form the community as well. So if you work on yourself, you might feel like, okay, you know, I'm failing every day, but you're not. Because just the fact that you question those societal norms is the first step in itself. Okay, so I just want to give everybody that push, that, you know, if we can do one thing every day, maybe, that really questions or analyzes the expectations of society and certain gendered roles that are given to us, you know, maybe by every day also we will see certain changes in our relationships with others.
So we just got a question from Pranami, and this is a question that has come up in, like, literally in every platform, you know, and it keeps coming up. So I think I wouldn't, I don't know, Pranami, who you are addressing this question to, but I constantly feel that this is addressed to all of us, you know. I mean, we're all part of this, right? So
I have an answer to that, because that's a question I get a lot.
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah, we all do that.
And I will say the status of women in the Northeast region, again, we are looking from a very, very misconceived lens. We have freedom of mobility, and people think freedom of mobility equals freedom from a violent free life. And that's the mistake that we are making. And that is why, you know, government, when it comes to policies, and they have mistaken the Northeast region and the freedom of mobility that women have. And therefore, that is why, you know, schemes are not coming in, issues are not being highlighted. But if you see the ground reality, women face the same discrimination universally, you know, whether it be mainland India, whether it be a different country altogether, the issues are the same. You know, it is as gruesome, but I think that, you know, when it comes to the Northeast region, these issues are not highlighted, they are not heard, and that is why these stories are so important to be brought to the light. Also, you will see that the other issue we have is that there's not enough research, there's not enough data and statistics from the Northeast region for us to carry internationally and nationally. And work on research is so important for us, so that we can bring about the factual stories from the grassroots levels. Again, you know, freedom of mobility and the fact that we have, you know, a certain level of educational literacy here is kind of creating this this fillet around the fact and trying to hide behind that screen that women are so empowered in the Northeast region. That's the problem.
Thank you, everyone. Does anybody have a last thing to say? Or shall we wrap up? Okay, we wrap up. Thank you, Joy, so much. This was this was a super engaging, provoking, and also a very emotional session for me personally. Aku's sharing was just the icing on the cake, to be honest. Being the cis man, I think one gets the highlight as well. Sarcasm. And I hope I did a decent moderation of today's session. And I look forward to seeing Joy maybe again, in the course of the residency. Anything else beyond this, Meet, Google Meet, we can always have the chat box or email thread to share. And Joy, if you allow, if you can share with us the presentation that you did today, so it will give us a chance to kind of go through and reflect again. Yeah, thank you so much. All in all, this was, I think, the best I could have, envisioned for a session. Yeah, just thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks, Kumam.